I'm about to eat something. I'm going to describe what's going on here. So, let's say within a field that has a limitation of observation, there are two people with two different ideas of what's going on inside that field. Now, the more this person moves, the more that their idea, their pattern, fills up the observed field for everyone to acknowledge and see what makes sense. And the more this person moves, the more that their pattern fills up the observed field so that others can observe what's going on and see what makes the most sense. Now, here's the thing. If we go back to bet massing, then the more that these guys move is also dependent on how much they make sense of themselves while they move through the environment. So whoever gets to make the most sense is automatically correlated to who has not only internally but externally the proper argument to bet their mass so that it doesn't collapse regardless of what anyone thinks. Now what's happening is the person who agrees with this is making a lot of sense, is getting to the point where this is the only thing that actually makes sense, and this happening is just happening because somebody wants it to. Now, every time that this mass gets filled, this person becomes more aggressive because to them, if they're losing, then life is wrong. And so that more aggressive movement for the moment creates a larger response from the mass that's responding to life. Like everything you do, what's responding to your actions, the fact that this paper just stopped me is all a collective thing that life is responding to you by. They respond harder, they act harder, and thus what happens is because they're acting harder, the mass creates a bigger response temporarily, but they still crash because of it. Now, they could have found a new pace of exploiting the mass system. However, what happens is because they've done that, I'm sort of jerked down into what they think is going on anyway. Here's what I think they're doing to survive. Because ultimately they're wronged, but know that we're only seeing the way things look. And remember, these are the guys that focus on how things look rather than how they are. That does not care about the internal structure, but more so how it looks out on the inside. How it looks out on the, they just did that shit again. That pisses me the fuck off. And here's where they say, see, but look at that. He said something wrong. And to me, that looks like he must be wrong about something. So they don't care about how it is on the inside. They care about how it looks. And so it looks like I just made a mistake without any explanation. No need to discuss or explore the internal cause. I just look wrong on the outside because I was wrong or said something wrong for a second. This shit right here is what I'm talking about. And so they believe that because they've lost, that they have the right to become more aggressive because they don't want to understand. They refuse to understand how they could be wrong because they had too many goals off of the entire board becoming what they wanted it to be. And so they jerk me down. They have this little wire system, which is every time they go faster, every time they refuse, they spam. They spam harder, create a larger response in the shared environment, and I have to perceive it. Now, you can honestly say that based on my goal of trying to figure out where everyone physically is all the time, I've also figured out what everyone is physically thinking all the time because the environment itself is constantly displaying everyone's thoughts based on how it lines up in front of me. Everyone's intentions, everyone's ideas, what they're all doing is lining up in front of me at all times, what the goal is, what they're trying to accomplish. Now, a guy like this would try to call me a dumbass and a smartass and purposely put images and objects in front of me that illustrate something bad happening or something moronic happening and say that if I don't accept it, then I don't believe what I'm saying. But the fact that I can see that image around what's going on means that I still have track of what's going on. So my whole point being, I got distracted when I was going to describe the method that they were using to pace to make it seem as if they aren't wrong when they are. Right around the time that I messed up. And that was the thing that when we see it, we'll notice what's going on. So here's what I think it is. I think, oops, hold on. See, I'm making more mistakes again. This is the thing they don't want caught. They have a lot of mass stored up. And the mass is represented as finances, social connections, opportunities, stuff like that. And what they're doing is they're putting it out at a very thin pace, at a very thin and slow pace. And their hope is that because they can't perceive it happening any other way, that we've done the same thing, and that we're just stored mass that we're putting out at a slow pace. And so what they believe is going on is that we're strategically just releasing ourselves or our information at a pace that makes them look wrong, because that's what they're doing. And so whenever it looks like I'm right, they spam harder their pace, and that sudden change of occurrence, which is obviously caused by, no, I'm not wrong, makes us feel like we've done something wrong, or causes mistakes like that. Because if we don't understand what's happening and can't describe the change of pace quickly enough, we're too busy responding to things going wrong to keep track of what's happening, and thus they can continue saying, y'all don't know what's going on, and I still feel like I'm right. And that keeps it going. And so the goal is, according to their understanding, that we run out of mass before they do. This is pretty much okay, I think at this point, notice from not from this point here, but up to this point, every time that I've been disrupted, disturbed, or made a mistake, it's always been when I called out something important about their strategy. But now it's going to become more chaotic, which means they're going to lose more mass. Their goal is to get me to run out of my mass first before they run out of theirs, so that they can have theirs left to just run around me and pretty much assert and do anything they want and say, nah, you were wrong, we're still going, you can't go anymore. But they also know that because they want that it's a possibility from my end. Now here's what I'm doing on my side. I'm pretty much waking up every day with 0. And then I see what you guys are saying and what you guys are doing. And I say, wait a second, that doesn't make sense. You're about to crash based on what you're saying. And that puts me into the game. Now, into the game, once I'm in, I start looking at what's happening. Hold on, I caught myself here because I said 0, and they're all like, he said he has 0 mass. He said he has 0 mass. That means he lost. So let me reword myself here. What I do is I pretty much go in without an opinion to see what you guys are doing, which means I don't have a momentum of structure to add yet. And then based on what you guys are doing, I see where the collisions are going, and I add the right little fixes to those small areas. And based on your response, you start describing me as this, you start describing me as that. I figure out what you are as an entire mass, and then I say, okay, here's my bet for what we're all doing today. And then I push it, and then I win. So once again, these guys are just playing a game of spamming it randomly whenever they're about to lose, to disturb and distract everything. And that disturbance causes us all to back out and not push as hard because we've been made wrong. And their argument is, yeah, but you're wrong about something, so that means if you bet here, you'll crash. And they're hoping to do this. But they also have a regenerative game in which they can continue like eating food and sleeping, regenerating or redeveloping that loss of mass very slowly. But obviously you don't lose as much mass, you don't gain as much mass as you're losing whenever you're using this kind of strategy. And so the whole point is I'm disturbed and stuck here because they don't want to hear how their little strategy ends. But it's like this: they go until they get to a loss, and then they say, I gotta try harder, and then they do this. And then once we're all confused and lost, they just slow down to a pace, and they say, no, you guys were lost and confused, you need to stop betting so hard, because if we bet harder than them there, then they'll crash and they'll lose. And so they go until they eventually reach another collapse, and then they say, no, I can't lose, and then that's the cycle. And so you ever met a guy that whenever you want to make a decent point against them, all of a sudden you just lost your ability to talk? Now, if you accuse me of being this guy, I know you're fucking lying, because I actually need to hear what people are saying so that I can understand what they mean when I'm responding to them. I actually respect this system. I'm not just trying to exploit it. So if you ever come across those guys that, even though you have in your mind a good logical structure of what's happening, but when you try to communicate it to them, it just starts getting scrambled and falling apart, it likely means that they're just, I can't be wrong, and massing even harder. And you guys got to understand, when I say that our thoughts are what's happening, I mean that if your brain can figure out how dolphins do echolocation and make the bet that if it focuses on those same ideas that the dolphins might be using to use echolocation, then you might genuinely develop echolocation. I don't know what this is here, but there's still some physical hold on I need to describe things from what's happening right now, but what's happening right now is wrong, and everyone keeps saying that. So obviously we need to describe things at some point before the error. So it's like that. And that echolocation shit goes in any direction. Anything you can figure out how it's occurring and then bet your mass on it, you can actually start doing it. But yeah, that kills a lot of people. And all that's gonna happen here is they're gonna say, no, that's what you're doing, and then scramble mass